Well, I think I'm full. We can go home now. So let's hear it again for Rafe Perlman, for Matt Corey, Aaron McGowan, and our wonderful Seattle Unity singers. By the way, you all look marvelous. So obviously today is Easter, and we have arrived at the day of the resurrection. And the resurrection of Jesus is an event that shows us that we can break through any barriers that we face individually or collectively. Can I get an amen? Amen. Yeah, so this is the day that we celebrate life. We celebrate the return of the sun in the northern hemisphere, the flowers, the spring. And as we all know, Easter has its roots in ancient and other pagan traditions. Eostre was a Germanic goddess who symbolized fertility. So it's a time also to celebrate birth, fertility, and life. And what are the universal symbols of fertility and life? Rabbits and eggs. And so these symbols live on in the Easter Bunny, who may have visited your house this morning if you have children, and hid his eggs or her eggs, right? So these are universal symbols that have been going and carrying through the ages for thousands of years. So we're celebrating that life. The story of death and rebirth is one also that can be found across all cultures throughout the ages. Ishtar was a goddess who made her descent into the underworld to come back again to life. We all know the story of Persephone, who was kidnapped and brought into the underworld, and while she was in the underworld, nothing grew because her mother Demeter was grieving. And when she returned, life once again returned to the earth. So there is a descent to the underworld. There is a time of emptiness, maybe even hopelessness, and then there is the resurrection. So last Sunday, when we last left Jesus, he was riding high. He had ridden the colt into Jerusalem. He was fulfilling the prophecies of the Messiah, and he had the crowd in the palm of his hand. He could have taken Jerusalem. He could have taken over, but he recognized that his kingdom was not an earthly kingdom. It was an inner and heavenly kingdom, so he took a different route. And as we know, things began to unravel quite rapidly for him throughout this week. By Thursday, Judas had let the guards know where he was going to be and sold him for 30 pieces of silver. I don't think Judas had a malicious intent. I think that Judas may have seen that Jesus was kind of going to take another path, and he was sort of pushing him. You know, I think he thought, well, if I push him far enough, Jesus is going to show that he is, you know, the king of Israel, that he is going to take over and do that. And of course he didn't. And then when the guards came and arrested Jesus in the garden, Peter was with him, and Peter was asked by the guards, "Are you with him?" And he's like, "Nah, don't know him, never saw him." And they're like, no, I think I saw him with you. "Nope, don't know him." "Are you sure?" "I'm pretty sure I saw." "Nope, not me." So not only then is he sold, but then he is betrayed by Peter. And Peter is kind of like his best friend, right? I mean, Peter's this rock, right? He said, "Upon this rock I will build my church." Peter's the one who, like, you know, jumps out of the boat and walks on the water. I mean, he's the one that Jesus can depend on no matter what. Peter believes in him and has faith, and then Peter denies him. Have that ever happened to you, where you've had someone in your life who is like a rock, and you figure they're always going to be there for you, and then maybe not. Maybe you find that you are betrayed. And then comes the crucifixion, and this too is a universal experience. How many times in your life have you been crucified to descend and then to resurrect once again, right? I mean, it's a universal story that all of us have experienced on some level or another. But here's the deal. When we are crucified, when our hearts are broken, when we feel like we can't go on, there's always more, right? There's always something else. It's not the end of the story. And how many different ways can you imagine that we can be crucified? And one is when we have an illness, right? When our bodies break down, when we have a terminal diagnosis or something serious happens to us, we can feel betrayed by our bodies and crucified by that. When we lose a relationship, that can come as a crucifixion. When we lose a job or suffer a severe financial setback, we may feel crucified. So when you're crucified, you may feel broken, but it is through this breaking that the light enters, right? What did Leonard Cohen say? Ring the bells that still can ring. Forget your perfect offering. There is a crack in everything. That's how the light gets through, right? So when we have these experiences of the breaking, it may feel like we're breaking, but the truth is that we're opening. Maybe another way to look at it is we're opening. We're opening our hearts, we're opening our minds, we're opening our lives to something else. So again, the story of death and rebirth is something that can be found across all cultures and across all ages. It is part of the hero's journey. And when we are in a crisis, we're likely to descend. But it is a story really of growing and expanding in our evolution and in our consciousness. It shows us that no matter what the circumstances, we break through and we resurrect. And it doesn't have to be like something horrible that happens to us in a crucifixion. It can be something wonderful, right? Think of those times that you dissolved. It could be a time of falling in love, or giving birth to a child, or having some wonderful high experience through prayer, through meditation, through the winning of a World Series. Sorry, I had to get that in. Hey, enlightenment comes in all forms. Just saying. Shania Fine said that illness, accidents, or other factors can create a change in an individual, and this change was often termed as a shamanic death. The death is not physical, but the death of a person's unawareness, lack of connection, and inertia. That is what it is the death of. The death uncovers the true self. So once Jesus is crucified, he descends into the tomb, and what happens then? You can call it the tomb, you can call it the underworld, but this is where we must go before we can ascend, and it may feel like this. Again, from Shania Fine. This is a life-changing process that can begin at any time, lasts for weeks, months, or years, and ends as abruptly as it began. It involves changes so rapid, and the person may find it difficult to operate at an everyday reality. Afterwards, the person has an expanded level of being, increased awareness of oneself and one's environment, and most importantly, it leads to union with the divine cosmos, resulting in the gifts of power, of healing, and of wisdom. Ever happen to anybody here? Yes, the descent and the awakening and coming back with almost with the elixir of life, right? Coming back with new teachings, coming back with new awareness, coming back in a new and different form. This is the process of life. This is the cycle of life that we participate in. So we have the descent into the underworld, the dismemberment and the death, the integration of the new personal and the great significant teachings, and the coming back out into the light. So back to the Easter story, which we were alluding to. So after Jesus was crucified, he was laid in the tomb. And because it was the Sabbath, the women had started to anoint his body and prepare it for death, but they had to stop because of the Sabbath, and they're not allowed to work. So they were in the tomb, and a big stone was rolled in front of the tomb. And they return on Sunday morning because the Sabbath is over, so that they can finish what they were doing. And I want to share with you the scripture from Mark 16. So when the Sabbath was over, Mary Magdalene, Mary the mother of James, and Salome brought spices so that they might go to anoint Jesus' body. And very early on that first day of the week, just after sunrise, they were on their way to the tomb, and they asked each other, "Who will roll away the stone from the entrance of the tomb?" But when they looked up, they saw that the stone, which was very large, had been rolled away. And they entered the tomb. They saw a young man dressed in a white robe sitting on the right side, and they were alarmed. "Don't be alarmed," he said. "You are looking for Jesus the Nazarene who was crucified. He has risen. He is not here. See where they laid him. But go tell his disciples he is going ahead of you into Galilee. There you will see him just as he told you." Now, in different scriptures, in different gospels rather, the stone is rolled away or dissolved by an earthquake. And the Romans had put soldiers on the tomb to watch it because they were afraid that the people would come and steal it in the night, and then, that Jesus is saying he's going to resurrect, and so they were trying to keep a handle on it. So the stone is rolled away. Now I want to look at this from a metaphysical perspective and from our story. So when we find ourselves in a tomb, when we find ourselves in that descent, there's probably a stone, a rock, a boulder that is blocking our way and perhaps keeping us there. And whether that's your situation now or something that you have been in the past, what has that stone been for you? Just think about that for a second. What has that stone been? Has it been unforgiveness or fear of failure, not enoughness? What is it that has kept you locked in this tomb? Because the truth is, we're not serving anybody if we never come out of it, right? Because the purpose of going into it is to be broken up in a sense so that we can open to the light. And here's the thing that I think is so cool about this story, is that the women didn't come and then get a bunch of guys and a bunch of people and say, "All right, we're going to move this stone. Come on, everybody. We're going to work together here." It was moved for them. They're wondering, how is it going to move? It was moved for them. The angel moved it. The earthquake moved it. So what does this mean for us? I think it means that when we may feel like we're in this lost and place where we're not sure what is the next step, that there is divine intervention available to each and every one of us. And we may call it an angel. We may call it an angel. We may call it the presence of God. You may call it synchronicity, whatever it may be. But the divine presence dissolves the stone. So just for a moment, and we kind of did this at the beginning of the service when Rafe was singing about Lazarus. It was intentional that we were speaking about breaking through the stone and dissolving. So just in your life right now, and if it isn't your personal life, think of the global national life. What is it that may be blocking you in your tomb right now? And guess what? There's nothing you need do. We invite the presence, the power, the activity of God to move that stone, to move it away. And imagine seeing yourself walking through this tomb and stepping out into the light as you are a resurrected being, an enlightened being. See yourself as you really are in all your glory, in all your perfection, in all your lightedness, if you will. And then just come back and open your eyes. So who will roll away the stone? Divine assistance can help to do that. So what about on a collective level? So it may not appear from outer circumstances that we are moving forward in an expanded consciousness together. It may seem like we are going backwards because the word has been, particularly with the New Thought movement for the last couple of decades, is that we're all evolving spiritually, right? That we're all waking up, that we're all becoming these resurrected beings. And yet when we look at the world, it's like, really? We're here again? How did we get here again? Are we possibly looking at war and war and war again? And Deborah Boomer, she's one of our members who hasn't been able to come lately, put a little post on my Facebook page from a woman named Martha Beck. And she basically spoke to this. She said, I'm a sociologist, and I believe that in my lifetime that we would see this great awakening in humanity taking place. And people are worried because they feel like the opposite is happening. And so she put together this little image of a pyramid, and she made it out of sugar cubes. And she said, society is structured like this pyramid. The ones on top, little sugar cubes that are on the top, have the ability to force, to dominate, to be more powerful. And every society has always been like this. And then at the bottom is the poor and the working class, and the top is the elite. And so what happens is, there's a revolution, and people seek to upturn it. And this has been going on for eons and eons. And then guess what? The pyramid gets built up again. And she said, what if we looked at it differently? And I have been feeling this strongly, that, all this talk about waking up and stuff, I don't think anything can happen the way things used to happen. We are in a different place, we are different people, we're in a different time, and so the awakening looks different, and guess what? It doesn't look like anything we've ever done before, because we've never done it before, and you are the people that get to spearhead it and see it through. So the image that she used, the other image that she used was water. And she said, what if that those people who are waking up, who are on the spiritual path, who are seeking love and light, God, and all those things, what if it instead of being a hierarchy, like I'm better than you, rather it's water. It's like water. And so we are connected. And what happens when you have water is, you have ripples. And in your own life, we each have ripples that go out. And sometimes the ripple may go out, and it may meet a ripple of a total opposite of us, and so they kind of neutralize each other. And what if the ripples come together and they're both of a very high consciousness, and boom, maybe we get a big wave, right? The opposite also can happen. But the ripples go out, and we can influence those who are next to us, those who are in our lives, not with domination or preaching, but with love and with kindness and with connection, right? So then she takes the water and she poured it into the bottom of the pyramid, which of course is all sugar cubes. And as she's talking, it slowly began to dissolve. And she said, it's not that we are looking to destroy anything, but rather we're looking to dissolve it. And who gets dissolved first but the ones at the bottom, because they are reaching forward in love. And how does it get changed? How does it get transformed? How does it get resurrected? It is through love. It is as Jesus would do it, right? What did he say on the night before he was crucified? He said, love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your mind, and with all your strength. And the second commandment is like it, which is to love your neighbor as yourself. Now, I know this might sound very Woodstocky in 1960s and la-di-da. But it is the truth. So recognize that as you are going through whatever you go through on a personal level, in your own crucifixion, your own descent, and your own resurrection, that every time you go through that, you bring back the gifts. You bring back the conscious awareness. You bring back the teachings that are a benefit not just to your life, but are a benefit to everyone around you. Yes, have you had that experience? Can you call that forth in your life? So we're looking at not a revolution, but a dissolution. We dissolve the violent parts, not just of the world outside of ourselves, but we dissolve the violent parts of ourselves within, right? We dissolve the anger that is within. And I love how she concluded it when she said, we need to have the heart listen to the mind, and the mind listen to the heart. And how does that happen? She says it happens through art. So you can have fun with it. You can play with it. It doesn't have to be a serious business. So this is a day of breakthroughs. This is a day of pushing through that stone. And you know what? It happens easily. It happens completely. It happens effortlessly when we call on the presence of God, when we call on that divine being. He, she shows up for us. So as we celebrate the return of life, of fertility, of the resurrection, we know that we have it coded in us to rise. And so I say, arise, all men, arise. Arise, all women, arise. Arise, all children, arise, sir, arise, madam, arise, all of us, that we may be lifted up and transform and resurrect this wonderful, beautiful planet on which we live. Thank you. Thank you.